Right.
Yes, yes. So letters rogatory, notice to the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, AG. What do you think, Mac? Anybody else needs to know how we're doing and what we're up to?
Got computer online?
I would actually send a notice to the Queen as well.
To the Telling- Queen?
Governor General
We have
covering
noticed
that.
her Governor General.
Governor General's covering that.
Yeah, but you gotta notice her that you've noticed him.
Well,
Or at least
every
maybe
time we write to the Governor General, they
CC.
write to the Queen writes back to talk to my Governor General.
Yeah, especially if you put notice to agent, notice to principal, notice to principal is notice to agent as well, I guess.
Right.
That would cover it.
Thanks.
There's coffee cups on the other side.
Thing on.
Allison, do you want to put that one in?
Or you
the
can,
one?
you can,
Yeah. No, I get the one here.
It does not feel like you put pressure.
I get my email.
Burning the candle
take
at both
it,
ends.
just take it.
Is this empty here?
No, partial. Which one are you at? I'll take that, Jess.
No, the documents.
Oh,
Here,
there
you
you
can
go.
use
Ken's
that
got
one.
one
It
too.
might not fit things.
Yeah, that's what I'm sure.
He's emailing me.
As long as it seals in the top, you're okay.
Cool.
Ah,
So it's on my email.
Just drink it fast.
I'm having a hard time hearing, guys.
If you go,
Excuse me?
if you go partway up, and if they don't, you can go further.
Yeah.
A few times we may have to.
Yep.
I bet you won't have to.
No, I agree.
We're trying to move out, so we may have to go quite a ways up. Maybe we do the top, don't know.
You know, we could add it now, and he's right, we could refine tune it, pull it out. I'm talking repository that does it for the client. You get their paper, and you take over, whoever brings you an issue, a mortgage, a charge, whatever it be. These are the intelligences that will be working with others' issues. As we separate and go through our regions, they will ask for our assistance. To take the time to explain and hold their hand is a long time.
Well,
If
if
they
they,
don't
if
come
they
in
need
form.
somebody to handle it for them, the government's already prepared to do that.
Understood. Understood. So to be able, under power of attorney under reserve, take care of their issue for them without having to grant a long-winded explanation, give them a copy and let them figure it out, what do you want to do?
See why not?
There's going to be a little hand-holding at the beginning. And so what Al's offering, maybe we have to notify for the beginning the higher-ups and the out-of-towners. Oops, excuse me, like the Queen herself and such.
Well, this is what I'm leaving to start moving towards operating in the true sort of international
On your
capacity.
phone?
Yep.
So one nation to another.
Yep.
You're getting internet service.
What did the states do?
Gene sent me,
Come into existence.
sent me that document.
Communicate your issue.
Emailed it to
By
me.
Notify.
how? A declaration, to the
Right, a
world.
decree, right, yeah.
What's it called?
Sent
Your
it,
email.
did that.
Confederation.
Declared their existence to the world, though, right?
Yeah.
Right.
On an international
Well, I
stage.
can print it there. Tomorrow we're gonna have it.
Oh, the,
Now, the
what's it
Queen
called? The second
is the head climber, though.
Yeah, no,
Yes,
we'll print it.
he's right.
It's right on my email.
He's very important point here.
Confederation.
Anybody disagree with Tim's point?
Constitution.
Didn't hear it.
Can I get you to repeat your point, please?
As I say, the Queen is the head climber of the white race.
Agree or disagree?
Agree.
All the way around the table? You got my vote.
Now, see, the thing is, you've got to understand is that the system of government that they're using, which is hidden from all these gurus, or if they do know about it, and I spoke to that Nagas guy a year back, and he knew exactly what I was talking about. I was talking about grandmother's struggle, government, second he knew all of that. He says, well, when you start to get to know, you become a man of consequences, he said. Then he didn't want to talk to me after that, no more after that. But the system that they're using is a grandmother system, because by law international, the only way you can lay claim to territory is with grandmothers, because they are title holders to territory. Now, all this ties into the stuff you've already learned, because you know that you can't own the land, but you can own the title to land, right? Well, grandmothers are the first title holders to the territories, okay? So they're first, supreme, you see. This is the system that they're using. Right now, there's grandmothers spread across Canada, the States, Australia, New Zealand, anywhere the Commonwealth, where the common law of England prevails, is because all those countries are still under that white race tribal system of government, because there's white clan mothers who are claiming those territories, those lands. And they're all the one family. This is the family you're talking about now, Roman civil law, and the family, how you're describing it, their family, clans, they know their clans and their tribe, who they are, and they're using this to run the world. They are all registered at the Bank of England.
Lloyd's of London's their insurance broker for the judges.
Well, the Bank of England is a state unto itself, is it not?
And that's where the registry of all the clan mothers, cursus and missus, for all the territories that are claiming around the world, is kept.
Oh.
See, Meredith he took back Session jurisdiction, territorial jurisdiction to Salamanca in New York back in the 70s. And he explains on this disc, I'm making some copies of it for you guys, he explains on there.
Thank you.
How he did it. It started off with the Ogden Land Company, I believe, which is like the first land company that bought the land from the Indians under the supposed agreement, right? Signed by the Indians, the new system of government with elected chief and council kind of thing.
Speak a little louder.
So he wrote to the Ogden Land Company and basically got a letter back from them, well, we're just a subdivision of the parent company, and he named the next
Surrogate relationship.
one up, yeah. He wrote to them, and they wrote back, well, we're just a subdivision of the parent company of the, next one, we're just a subdivision of the parent company of the governor of New York.
Not offering legal advice, but giving hidden direction. Yeah.
Right. Well, each one is just saying, well, it wasn't anything, it didn't, had nothing to do with us, we're just a subdivision of the parent company of, and they named their next one up. Governor of New York, he wrote to the governor of New York, well, we're just a subdivision of the parent company of the Commonwealth of Massachusetts. So he wrote to the Governor General of the Massachusetts, Commonwealth of Massachusetts. And that guy wrote back, well, we're just a subdivision of the parent company of the Bank of England. See, all these are just subdivisions of the, interesting, Bank of England, parent company, okay. So he wrote to the Governor of the Bank of England, and he got a letter back with the name and address of a clan mother who at that time was married to a senator in the States. And he wrote to her, and this is getting like personal now, right? Because she's claiming,
Back to the land.
claiming Session jurisdiction to that land from this act that happened back in 1870, whatever, when those Indians signed that original like land to the reserve purchase sale agreement to that company, right? Because these was not signed by signatory Indians, therefore you do not have Session jurisdiction. As simple as that, right? Well, because you're getting your authority from this act here, well, the Indians that signed that weren't signatory, meaning there's no value to their signature in regard to the land, because they have the authority and right to speak on behalf of the land, because they're no longer sovereign Indians. They changed their system of government, you see. They were ruled by clan mothers, so they changed that. As soon as they changed that, they changed from being a savage, first-born citizen, to an inhabitant, third-born citizen, patriarchal society that has no legitimate clan mothers. And that group of Indians signed an agreement with selling the land and what have you. Well, obviously it's not valid and it's void, because those guys that signed it didn't have that authority. It's like somebody coming along and says, selling your fucking whatever that belongs to you.
Self-appointed authority.
Right? How do you explain that in your white man's language law?
Self-appointed
That's what it
authority.
would be, right?
So if that's the case, and somebody were to write to the Queen, what did you call it, Session?
Session jurisdiction.
Can you spell that?
Spell that.
Spelt like session? Or-
Session, C-E-S-S-I-O-N. And if somebody was to write to the Queen, well, I showed you that those guys sent in 95, right? Official notice. To the Queen.
Session, cessation.
Session is territorial.
It can be seated.
Oh,
Being ceded, right?
it's always
no
ceded
lands,
back to the House of Ledgers.
which would be the ones that hold the title.
House of Saxon, House of York.
So therefore, if you were going to come forward, just to notice the parties that you're a testator and an executor in Canada, you're living on the land, and the Session authority then actually here inures to the natives, but under the Queen Anne Trust is held for the settlers to come live. So you're actually,
Except for the fact that the Queen Anne's Trust thing that you just mentioned there, by whose authority? You show me where the signatory Indians signed their land going into trust under anybody's act, and I'll agree with you. Because I'll tell you right now, they don't have any land. Admittedly there, because the landlords are absent right now. So
They
they're
call that-
administrating the estate, trust territories that the United Nations Canada is described as.
If I'm misreading this, misunderstanding it, Session, the act of ceding, a yielding or giving up, surrender, relinquishment of property or rights. In civil law, an assignment, the act by which a party transfers property to another, the surrender or assignment of property for the benefit of one's creditors. In ecclesiastical law, a giving up or vacating a benefice by accepting another without a proper dispensation. In public law, the assignment, transfer, or yielding up of territory by one state or government to another.
Right there, because public law is international law, and you just said what?
The transfer or yielding up of territory by one state or government to another.
Yeah, the ceding the territory by one state to another, or
Up.
the yielding up. Right, which means saying that you got the right to do that in the first place, don't you?
And you can't
Yeah.
cede it if you don't
And if you
have
have no
authority. over it.
cession jurisdiction, territorial jurisdiction, because it's not been ceded to you, cession relates to territory. Again, what you just said, you can't not relate to territory and having the right to give it up if you're saying that it's to do with giving up of territory.
Okay, well then you can still write to the Queen as a clan
She's just the trustee.
No, she's a clan member.
Yes, well, that's what this was. That's what this was.
Yeah, she's the trustee for just what you just said.
For the
For the
wise,
session.
for the
No.
Wise House
No.
Trust.
Now you want to go down.
Actually, this isn't her territory, it's being held in trust.
408.
Whether the landlords are absent or not, this is still native land, it's Indian land. we are on.
1499,
Oh, I'm native.
which is the.
You want to do this? This is your day, Paul.
It's Indian land, not native land.
And you want this in there for some reason?
Everything west
Because it
of
relates to what they're
Ontario
just leading to
is
now.
still Indian land.
Well, so, who's an Indian?
You are. If you knew you
Thank
were, you come from your tribe.
Native.
Not native,
Not native?
no, because native words have jurisdiction. And an American Indian and a native Indian, two different animals. One's a sovereign, one's a third world citizen, and
Right versus right.
inhabitant. A native Indian is an inhabitant. So no, it's just like the deer, moose, elk, inhabit the bush. You know, you do those things, don't you?
So-
Inhabitant.
What we're dealing with here is putting together something to say that this is what you are.
Yes.
Right. But we wanna, if you
This
come,
is what you are.
if you come forward.
Standing means status.
Standing and
Does an
status.
executor have grantor power? Does a settler have grantor power?
Settler, I would say, exactly.
Depends on his position that's in standing.
Look at Gene's affidavit here again. After he gets into the first part, the standing, then he gets in that I am a sound mind and competent to give testimony, well, I don't like that word testimony, but that I am the grantor, settler, and donor with legal title and ownership of the funds and securities held by the indentured trustee of the whatever, of the birth certificate.
See, initially, like years ago, 100 years ago, 200 years ago, a grantor of a trust was somebody that set it up. But the settlor actually put the corpus of the trust, he gave it value.
Right.
Okay, so they were actually different, they're used interchangeably a lot. Of the
The next, his next point, in his next point, he says that as donor and beneficiary and the legal heir of the decedent's estate. Okay, he's covered it all there in those 2 points. And I think that's what I was putting in my example that I was working on.
You're
but,
going to left the word deceit out.
No, it isn't decedent, it's dead. It is
Their
dead.
jurisdiction, it isn't.
It's not you.
You're civilly dead.
They call it a decedent.
They do.
Absolutely, they call it a decedent.
Even if you're just absent and MIA and they
That's
don't
the
know
whole
if you're
thing, you're presumed
presumed.
dead.
So it's a presumed deceit.
Yeah, so you could pick the presumed decedent's estate, yeah.
Put it in brackets in front of
I
it.
got a lot of that language in that document I was working on, like an access to the internet. I
Oh,
don't know why I forgot it.
which one? Affidavit?
Yeah, but I've changed it, but since you saw it.
Oh, okay, well, I've got it here.
Yeah, there's some of the things that are covered there.
Well, maybe.
But that's an old one,
He
though.
has,
Garbage already.
internet.
Oh, okay.
Wi-Fi on his computer.
This is draft one.
Yeah. Draft 2 is being emailed to me, or probably emailed to me already right now, but I can't access it.
Well, if they have an internet connection here that I can plug into,
Well,
does Malcolm have
I'll
one?
go ask if they got a.
I'll just take my computer down and you can access your email.
Didn't I have wireless?
Probably have wireless.
Well, I don't have a Wi-Fi in my computer, but I do have, I can just plug in for.
If they had a computer and printer down there, and
That was just us, Steve.
print across 2 pages.
Doing,
Yeah, I'm sure he's got
Glenn's talking about
computer.
going on with my parts. I think
Yeah.
that's what we're going now.
I would think there's one.
Every single link of the chain, right?
All right.
The individual community compound area.
Yeah,
This bus.
Yeah.
This bus and this bus.
Ascension to the contract is based on the parties' agreement. Ascension to the contract is based on the parties' agreement. You talk succession, or cessation, surrender. Does a surrender create a degree of entitlement of cure and maintenance?
Cession jurisdiction doesn't mean you've ceded, it means you have the authority to cede.
Yes, as a trustee has the right to appoint. But ascension to the contract is based on the parties' agreement.
Which, as officers of Her Majesty,
In alliance to her will,
they did already. Because
Through
they
the
are
pledge.
officers of Her Majesty.
That's all.
Bound to uphold Her Majesty's law. Her law is, by that Treaty of 408, to do everything humanly possible to protect tribal custom and usage.
yes.
There's your connection, there's the authority, there's why the Provost Marshal would get very interested. Because ally is friend, and treason is between friends.
Yeah.
For Her Majesty to officers to, is treason. It's why it's treason. Because you're an ally of Her Majesty. She's your friend. They can't fucking go and hurt your friend, or other officers hurting her friends. If she allows that, that's not very nice, is it? No, no. I don't think the Provost Marshal's going to allow that.
You're locked up, you can't have tea with her, that's for sure.
Good. Can we pull that front page you were looking at before?
And I read it to you.
What comes after?
I
Are we
agree.
adding anything from Mr. Keating's first page plus? What he's just mentioned may have a high degree of validity. He's got some interesting points down here that have been finalized. A violation of certain treaties that could be of value in there. I don't know how long and how much we want to add. I have a preference of shortening it personally.
Oh, yeah, keep it
We're
short.
discussing a lot of valuable points, but we want to keep 1, 2, 3.
But at the same time, when you cut a diamond, you grind every edge, right?
Okay.
And albeit that some facets are pretty tiny and others are fairly large, I think the importance of keeping these little notes in there, brief as you may say, like not get long-winded, but just note different treaties or whatever, and don't get into that, because in part of explaining to them the law behind this and these is, and they're putting in all kinds of case law and stuff like that.
Well,
right?
and here they're talking about, this is a foreclosure case, this is between Infinity Financial Service, this is a loan on a
Somewhere
car.
else, okay.
And so they get into talking about the note.
Where's
and
the Vermont
security.
one, Gord?
The which?
The Vermont one?
My hearing shot, yeah, this, I'm talking about here.
I really like that one.
Yeah, I found that online,
Did you?
along with an entire explanation of the letter of testament.
That was in somebody's application because this is just a template.
Yeah,
And it's a
yeah.
court form.
Yeah,
It's a
yeah.
court form.
Yeah. This has all the,
Anybody go online here?
no,
The
that's-
closest is Mac's cell phone, that's it.
Mac, maybe you want to do some kind of R&D on that if that's possible.
I can't download documents.
No, but we
I have that in my computer in a Word document.
Yeah, okay. We have
And,
anything that may have, like when I go on and I go for Supreme Court rules, I have one word in mind. Maybe it's to just go for maritime or admiralty, and I have them in all these forms. This is a form 27. So what is the form number for a testamentary, letters testamentary in Calgary? I want the form number.
Did not, I looked through the documents, I don't
Nothing.
believe there was. Because
That's Vermont, eh?
actually, a
This
probate
is
court,
Vermont.
Yeah.
Yeah.
probate court's
Letters
not
testament.
online. It's CQB and provincial court is online. Probate court is not, at least not as yet.
Interesting.
Family court is,
Yeah.
not probate.
I've walked into the registry and said, "Where is probate court held, Gary? And when?" He said, "Here in Supreme." Can I get a date for that? What do you want to do? I have a little issue concerning the estate. As you'll notice, I'm not the name, and I put out the paperwork and and got to Chris. When I emphasized Chris, he went straight on the computer and realized how much trouble he was in. But I'm avoiding a couple of things in my situation, and it's testamentary documentation, because I'm really good at the holographic will at this risk of sounding immodest. But my words are just wind. And I noticed that each province, I've got to get some agreement across the board and the words that work best. I understand it's all in probate, and I need some kind of testament in there. Who offered up the first testament? Who gave his life to offer up the first testamentary
The
document?
trustee.
John the Baptist.
Oh,
That's right.
John the Baptist.
the trustee would be Jesus.
I wonder if he could offer up the first
He
one.
paid all the debts.
I said, I don't think he'd have offered up the
John
first one.
Baptist
I don't think it was an
refused
offer.
to,
But
because it's
martyrdom. He owns the
Right.
kingdom of martyrdom.
Yeah, but Abram Raw was around a long time before
Yeah.
Baptist.
Yeah, we'll get back to
he
praising that.
refused to surrender to Salome
Okay.
in Herod's palace.
So
She tried to seduce him, and then she denounced him, and he was brought forward to apologize, and he refused to renounce his relationship to God, and he was beheaded.
That's given the order. Yeah, that's
Sort of
given the
like
order. They gotta come to your
But
door.
we did it
We had to get through,
probate court,
Jonathan here to
and
explain
we'd get the
that,
date from probate court, and then we would notice it.
but that's what happened.
Yeah, we're probate court.
Basically, that's what happened.
Well,
But we need someone to pick up
I agree that
documentation that they did not.
these
appear.
documents, affidavit,
Yeah.
that appears, special notice of demand.
But we need
Yeah,
we're
we're
in
here
the
to-
contemporary justice form. That's where
Notice
we're
of joinder.
at. This has validity under
Combination of
rights
all
to
these
issue.
things.
They're up here, they're looking at the
History
paper
of the
that's under them
colony.
first. We're bringing some of that up.
That's what he's talking about.
Okay, don't.
It's down all over there. We've got-
I'll take this and I am here.
Are we in agreement that the first thing we're gonna have to do is a notice to Governor General, Attorney General, Minister of Foreign Affairs? Nobody has a problem with any of that, right?
Hear ye, hear ye, hear ye.
Okay, letters rogatory sounds like the way to go, right?
What about sending one to the church here, the local?
Well, actually, what I'm
Getting
doing,
the
I was gonna
church
ask about
priest.
that.
We're gonna get
That's
into
why
that.
I thought it was a good idea to include the Queen with this, because the letters rogatory could actually include a very condensed version of an ecclesiastical deed poll renouncing, go ahead.
Okay, before we came down here, what we had agreed, and which I still kind of favor that idea, was that we do the initial mailing to the Governor General, the Attorney General, Minister of Foreign Affairs. Then after that was done, according to what I've read, that then the next thing that you do is then you send another letter to the Receiver General, to Treasury, what I was told. Well, that's Receiver General, that's the Secretary of the Treasury, to the Secretary of the Treasury demanding an accounting and audit. I want all debts owed, due, payable to the estate. An accounting of all this now, produce it.
Yeah.
And then it's gotta be,
Forensic
it's gotta be presented to the executor, because you don't know that
That's
your
the proper
account-
term that he's offering
Yeah,
to cover your position.
right.
Yeah.
Because your account could be building a bridge in Manitoba right now, you don't know.
Yet at that situation or that corner, you're offering contention.
No,
Are you offering contention? You're just, what?
You're asking for an accounting
Yeah,
because
we're
as the
asking
executive.
Where am I?
Offering contention, I got no problem with that, I don't need to offer that just
Okay.
yet.
Well, the
I'm gonna
executive, the
ask you,
executive.
gonna ask you to hold that thought for a minute, and I'll
It's,
tell you
it's
why.
valid.
If you're coming forward as the executor, all claims are settled and you have full authority over the estate. Nobody can rebut that.
The Pope.
They're going to have to give you what you've asked for. Before you do that, there's unum sanctum, okay? You remember that one? That was in 1213, I believe, and that was by the Catholic Church, and it segued into a claim by the Church of England, because for all their appearances of fighting, they came to an agreement when Henry VIII seceded the Church of England from the Roman Catholic Church.
1302.
Yeah, no, 1213 is when King John signed over the Crown of England.
I know, but unum, I believe unum sanctum predated when he
There was
stopped.
two, yeah, to 1213, there was two events that happened.
Yeah, well, the treaty where he made England a vassal state was pursuant to
Yes.
unum sanctum.
Yep,
Okay, it was conditional upon unum sanctum.
Okay.
Unum sanctum was the Pope claiming a lien, a maritime lien, on the earth and everything there, the people, the property and everything. He didn't claim the title, he claimed a lien, a maritime lien. And that went into a trust called Unum sanctum. It's actually Unum sanctum, okay? But he could no longer assert that claim once the Church of England split from the Roman Catholic Church. The claim that is being asserted, the unrebutted claim that's being asserted on us, is in the Church of England, and the Queen happens to be the head of the Church of England.
Yeah.
Okay? So clan mother or not, there's a maritime lien we're dealing with here.
Right, but we didn't disagree on that. What we had talked about was, as the executor, my job is to do what? To
Gather it.
collect, to gather all the estate property and
protect.
preserve it, protect it. Okay, now in that job, there's an accounting. That's what I'm doing with the, okay, so once I've got the standing established with the Governor General and the Attorney General and the Minister of Foreign Affairs, then I would write to the Treasury and say, I want an accounting of all debts due and owed payable to the estate.
I know in
That's
BC that's
great, but if there's a
106 and
claim-
107 called passing of accounts.
Yeah.
I do not know what it is in Calgary.
I'm telling you that they are doing what they're doing based on a hidden claim.
I
A
understand
maritime-
that, but-
No,
but-
no, you can't get an accounting of something that is held by claim that isn't part of the estate. You've got to rebut the claim first. That's what I'm telling you. There's steps here to be taken.
Yeah, so what was
Yeah.
being offered here is what I mentioned before, it becomes contentious because you have to create the entitlement to ask the question. You've just given direction. If you get the result, why need the extra?
Well, no, it's fine. All you have to do is rebut the claim, and that can be part of the letter's rogatory. Okay, and then when they have failed to respond within an allotted time, if it's written properly, you can actually bring them under contract, not as a Canadian, where they've sworn an oath and you're
Right.
accepting it. They've still sworn an oath of office, it's still an offer of contract. They have made the oath to Her Majesty the Queen, who is bound by international treaties and agreements.
Okay, so-
Okay, and therefore,
Kick it up, or is a freaking heat on
What
It's
I'm
not-
hearing you say then is in the letters rogatory that we're writing, we are also going to be addressing the Queen on behalf of the
Turn the lights off.
Vatican for
the
this
Queen
claim.
and or the Vatican.
Queen and or Vatican for the proof of this claim.
No, not for the proof, we're rebutting the claim
Rebutting,
unless they come
okay.
forth to establish the
Exactly,
validity
okay.
thereof.
Wrong word,
Go for it, Ken.
but same idea. So we're doing it all in that one document then.
You go there.
Yes,
Okay.
but it has to be, if it isn't there,
Turn the lights on.
basically, we've acquiesced to it. Because if we don't actually make mention of it,
Silence gets approved.
we've said we've consented to it. Because it's admiralty, we're dealing with admiralty here, international, or federal common law is admiralty. And that is codified, that's why the Universal Postal Union Treaty came into being. It establishes federal common law as admiralty, because they're enforcing contracts, commercial
Right,
law,
right.
and they had to have a jurisdiction in common to do it. And then they used admiralty as their jurisdiction in common. Under the Universal Postal Union Treaty,
You know what that's gonna do? It's gonna fuck up the cameras. They're looking into the light.
People
And
just.
everybody will be just a silhouette.
Yeah, I don't, do you think it's the lights making all the heat?
Yeah, that the.
and
No,
fan.
it's 9 human bodies in here.
Yeah, and, no
Sweating
ventilation.
and breathing.
Derek, most of them are pregnant too.
Speak for yourself. Speak for yourself, I'm just maintaining my sleep cougar-like physique.
Sleep cougar like.
My sleep
So-
hippo-like physique.
Until this is done, and they haven't responded, and they're on notice that any failure to respond, they can respond to acknowledge, they can respond, and this is basically commercial process, but it actually still applies.
Okay,
They
so-
can respond to accept, they can respond to rebut,
Right.
or they can go into default, and basically by doing so, agree,
Right.
because silence is acquiescence under the law, and that's not just in equity, that's in all
That
jurisdictions.
is
So
the foundation, that comes from tribal law actually, because it's natural law. You're walking down the street and you see something going on, that guy's beating the shit out of that woman, you just carry on walking by. Silence gives approval, and that's where all their law comes from. It is all based on the natural law, it
Okay,
just reflects
so-
it.
So if
Since we're in international, we're gonna give them 10 days, 15 days, 30 days.
28 days, I'd say.
28 days?
Days.
I would agree.
Yes.
That's more than courteous.
No, 28 because it's the number of positions in the tribal government. It does have relevance, that number in international. You look at some of the things they
And
say,
it's
there's 28
4/7.
countries in the councils. and
And
these things.
a month on the lunar calendar, which predates, it's the Mayan calendar operates on a lunar cycle as well as the old ancient Hebrew calendar and in the Hindu
So what was the
tradition.
word for going back to the beginning?
Ab initio.
Non-proton.
Ab initio.
No, none
Ab initio,
means
from the
now is
beginning.
then.
Yeah,
Yeah,
now
for
that's
them.
then.
No,
Now for-
non-protunct is now for them, but ab initio is from the beginning.
from the beginning.
So it'd be
Non-proton takes you back.
Initio.
Ab initio means just, we're starting right when it started. And the thing is you can rebut all claims ab initio, and, unless they come forward with evidence of their claim. And if they are making a claim against a merit, or a maritime lien against the estate,
And then it's like
when the
the word-
estate asks for evidence of their claim, now it's the executor asking for a claim which he can either acknowledge or deny. So he's adjudicating. Okay, and that's why this is all letters rogatory. When you're operating the estate and you're going to admit or deny a claim, it's the same thing that the judge does on the bench.
Yeah.
The Crown came forward on a criminal case
Claim,
with a
yeah.
claim.
Yeah.
If you got a lawyer for the other side and they're suing you, the judge is going to decide who gets the claim, who doesn't. You're adjudicating claims for the estate, and you're the highest authority. So when you tell them, bring forth your claim, or it is forever disallowed or rebutted or controverted, whatever you want to call it, do you think the Queen's going to write and say, ah, shucks, you got us, we had this secret maritime lien on you all this time, you sucker, you mentioned it, aren't you clever? Think she's going to do that?
Hello, this is Reader's Digest. You just won the clearance sale. Please come in and pick up your trophy.
There you go. You know, they're just not going to say anything. They're going to go into silence and acquiesce if you write the letters rogatory, putting them on notice of it, because you're asking them to ask these questions of
In
the
the corner,
Queen
feet to
even.
the fire.
All right, now these are not worded correctly, but just some of this here language in question format could go in there, that if they got in this here now, where it says that any presumption or presumptive grant of easement on the estate is hereby rebutted and stopped.
Unless proof is given.
Yeah, blah, blah. You are stopped from grant, or you, I don't like you, but is a stop from grant of prescriptive easement and presumption of dominant servient tenement
We talked
on
about
that
that.
blah, blah estate.
Dominant servient tenemency.
Yeah.
And you can also call it any maritime lien, whether disclosed or concealed.
Yeah, and
Okay,
then
you
it
can
go-
put that in
and
there.
then it
That's
goes-
perfect.
And then it goes on, that the occupant of the executor office to the blah blah estate renounces any and all claim by any and all blah blah of adverse right of easement of the estate, the same being hereby noticed of presumptive adverse right of prescriptive easement and denied any right of grant of conveyance of easement on the estate. That the blah blah, the whatever you want to say, the Vatican is hereby noticed by the extinguishment, of the extinguishment by release to the owner of the servient estate and by accession of all interest be returned to the estate and of their presumption of adverse right of prescriptive easement and retroactively denied any right of grant of conveyance of easement and material intermeddling with the estate.
Okay, right there, adverse easement, please. Okay, right then and there. He's talking about if they're in adverse possession of a claim on the estate or a right to the estate or the right to even monetize on the estate, which is what they've been operating on.
Right.
He just rebutted it.
So there's the, yeah,
Yeah, I mean, that's perfect, that's Gene's, is it?
yeah.
Okay.
Well, that's not
That-
Gene's, that comes up from whoever did that research in that corpus juris secundum. But I put it in that affidavit there, that was what I was working on.
Yeah.
That was one of my drafts for working on this, to get this stuff onto paper, so I
That's
think.
15
You don't
here,
put them
right?
on, you don't
Yeah.
put them on notice of that. You tell them to come forth with their claim, or in the alternative, this.
Right.
And then you basically tell them, please write within so many days.
Because it is
you know,
interrogatories,
within 28
which are questions.
Yeah, and please write within 28 days that you're in total agreement with this.
Yeah.
Or in the alternative, respond in affidavit form to rebut
Yeah.
that with which you
And
are not in agreement.
any rebuttal,
And-
rebuttal of any portion of this does not negate the whole.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And then you say, in the event that there is no response from you, It will be, you will have acknowledged that you have assented, acknowledged, agreed, acquiesced, and whatever else, to the undersigned's document in full,
Right.
that these letters rogatory have established the authority as laid out by, laid out as written.
Yeah.
You know, and then basically all they have to do is shut up.
Yeah,
Okay? Now, you don't want to use a notary here, but you can use witnesses to the document with thumbprints, and you can use witnesses for a proof of mailing or a proof of service. Because this is service. This is court to court.
yeah.
Okay? So,
How about a footprint or a toe print?
well, I used a toe print once on a document to a court in Quebec. I took one of those gold pens from the arts and crafts store and I put my social insurance number across the top in gold ink. I had a stamp on the middle of the page. I signed through it and I had my thumbprint. And where I signed at the bottom, I had my thumbprint and my right toe print. And they freaked. They changed the court file number because they had a motion. So I wrote back and I said everything that applies under that one applies under the other court file, and they ignored it because
So is this the public seal and is this the private seal?
this is,
Remember,
this is,
what is the-
I think the toe gives you standing on the land.
Well, no, it's preponderance of evidence. What does preponderance of evidence mean? The weight of evidence. What has weight? Standing, man,
Yeah.
footprint.
and your
And that the toe is
thumbprint
there, that means
is
you
like
have
your
standing.
seal.
Right.
Okay, it's like up the seal
I can
in
put my
red.
hand on it,
Do you
too.
remember how the king always had a
Which
signet
one?
ring? He
It's
sealed it in
it's
red.
so-
Nobody else was
He
allowed
used
to
to
walk
take
around with that
have
signet
his
ring.
document in
I
the
got news for
background was
you.
already
Nobody
like
else
a-
is allowed to walk around with this
a watermark
thumbprint.
of
I'm the only
his
one who's got
footprints.
it, unless somebody cuts that thumb off and carries it in their
Exactly.
pocket. I'm the only one with that thumbprint. That evidences the signature or autograph I put on
Sorry?
it. That toe evidences that I'm alive.
Yeah.
And I put both on there and they freaked.
It has validity. I could see the impression of, the upper part of the body, the lower part of the body, this is the head of state. We used to use body parts as measurements, we kind of still do. A man's foot.
Yeah.
It wasn't that a cubit?
Cubit from here to here,
Here.
or from there to there.
And it was the king's, whoever happened to be the king.
Yeah.
That was the
Right.
measurement of
Yeah.
a cubit.
Yeah.
And the
So if I
Well, we're
give
getting
three
off
pieces
topic.
of evidence,
Yeah, signature, a thumbprint, and a toe print.
hair,
Oh, DNA. Yeah.
Yeah.
Anyways, guys, we're getting off topic here.
Right?
that is,
Okay.
you can't produce it other than me.
The
So
only
tell me
problem
something.
with giving up DNA is the fucking wild shit that they can do when they get a hold of your DNA these days, right?
Cancel.
Yeah.
I am like the sun. I do not care about Khazarian poo-poo. I eat it like telluric breakfast
Fair enough.
for Cthulhu's lunch.
I'll tell you what, all they have to do is go in your house when you're not there, if that's what they want to do. Your
That's all.
hairbrush is there and all that
Before
stuff.
we-
Oh, dude,
Yeah,
especially check out red. You'll get the point.
Yeah, yeah.
We need red ink pens too, dark red, like.
Dark red,
You
yeah,
gotta sign this in dark red, not
Exactly.
bright red.
And all this has to go in blue ink, and it would be nice if we could actually get some of that
Blue ink.
robin's egg blue paper.
I'd like
I
to
think
interject
that too.
what has been presented there, as well as what's in discussion, easement, and the presumption of such, lawfully interpreted or prevented the exercise of the supported right. Going a little further, an easement ordinarily may be created only by deed or by an
Earwax, right?
prescription which presupposes a grant, albeit a lost grant, because that's what you're dealing with, and may be created by agreement, express or implied.
Okay.
Two ways of gaining easement. A, first by deed, which means agreement, contract. The second by prescription, which is just common usage.
And it presupposes.
I've
Well,
used it,
so
used it, and you never said nothing.
So
Yep.
prescription
Well, I
is
got it.
adverse possession.
Yeah.
Okay. And then now that they've been in adverse possession, they want it because they've had to take care of it all this time. It's just like me cutting the lawn and I do a strip 10 feet wide on your land because you left it. And after 20 years, I go to court and say I've been in adverse possession, I've been maintaining the land, I've been keeping it up, and never said a word. I've been using it, I've been cutting the lawn, I've been seeding the lawn, I've been doing everything on it.
My dog
and,
taps on it once in a while.
Have we heard of the term eminent domain versus adverse possession?
Well, eminent
Adverse
domain.
possession sounds like a contentious offer where
I don't-
where eminent domain creates the right of entitlement.
I like
Versus
the words in that there on prescriptive easement presumption and the survey tenement, I like that. I think that's what we should do.
That is the highest
Okay,
validity of
okay.
punching it hard.
Once we've sent this in, however we constitute it, we haven't gone through the,
Can we put in brackets maybe section 15 of what is the...
Well, that's the document, I'll be bringing that tomorrow in
section 15,
another
the
form
board's
that's an early
affidavit.
draft.
Gord's, it's got a book title here,
Affidavit of executor is what I call it, but that's.
This is in his bar card book.
Oh, sorry. Yeah, actually, it's just, I put a whole bunch of stuff in this.
Did you?
It's just that.
Affidavit of the executive.
And it's just a draft. You got the new one.
Yeah.
That's just the first draft.
Okay, so in 15, what he's got is that any presumption of presumptive grant of easement on the estate is hereby rebutted and is stopped. I got a question of the word next after the period says Canada is a stop from the grant of prescriptive easement and presumption of dominant Serbian tenement of the Gordon Michael Scheller estate. Canada, should we have that in there? Or the Queen?
Or the Vatican.
Or the Vatican.
Well,
I would
you see-
prefer the Vatican. If we put the Queen, it would be contentious. And as for Canada, I think it rises a degree of ambiguity. What is a Canada?
Yeah, the Vatican maybe, yeah.
You
I
can
got-
say-
that was
Bring
an
it
early
back to
draft.
the Unum Sanctum, the Vatican Unum Sanctum, just
Well,
tie those two together.
But unum sanctum doesn't apply in Canada anymore, because that segued into a claim by the Church of England. So we can just say any claims by the Vatican under unum sanctum, or any equivalent claims
Null and void?
by the Church of England, and/or the Crown, and/or Her Majesty.
Known and unknown.
There we go.
And basically, you just
That
and/or,
does cover
and/or,
it.
and/or.
That does, yes, because Canada's too big.
What about using Turtle Island?
Well, that's, the issue is the claim. You're rebutting a claim.
Here's an idea. Who's a fast typer, is a good typer?
I'm a pretty good reader.
Okay, is there anybody here that can do that?
Well, I can type it.
Okay, well, I got an idea here. I've got that document, it's been emailed to me.
So
And so I have a suggestion that we take some of this stuff and as much as we can. And, well, that's copy. And then what we do is, I bring that document in electronic form, and tomorrow we just take and we call it letters rotatory, and we start typing this out and putting the
Yes.
stuff in there.
Yes,
Getting all
yes,
this into
yes,
that.
yes, because we can work it as we go.
I used to
Yeah,
make
waste of time,
newspapers, so I'm a pretty fast at cut and paste.
Yeah,
I'm a newspaper guy, right?
Yeah, okay.
So I can
so
volunteer.
then we can start
Okay.
getting a draft put together.
Okay, guys, that's gonna be content, right?
Right.
Let's do form first. Form is easy. Content, we're gonna have to do back and forth. We
Yeah.
do some of it tomorrow. What we don't get done is gonna have to be back and forth by email.
Right.
But what I'm concerned about right now is we're not going to even get to the point where we can be at a state where we can do that if we don't decide on the form right now.
10-4, you got it. Your pleasure.
Okay. The first thing we're gonna do is letters rogatory. We're gonna send them to these parties
Right.
so far. Maybe the Queen, we'll argue about it later. We'll decide if it's actually necessary or not. But once this goes in my opinion, you're not doing formal commercial process where you're bringing anybody into default. Okay? So I think what you need to do is simply notice them. If we have not heard from you in 28 days, as silence is acquiescence, we will deem this to be your consent by
Right.
silence.
But
Okay?
exactly, but we're gonna send this along with it, right?
Yes, of course, that's the
So there's-
10
so
letters.
There's three documents.
Yes.
There's three
Okay.
documents, there's the letters testamentary, there's the letters rogatory, the first, the big one, we're looking at the form right now, and there's also the affidavit of the executor. And I'll Google that, see if I can
Affidavit?
pull some examples.
That's the
down.
draft and discussion right there, section 15.
Well, I've got a copy of an affidavit from Jonathan that we could probably.
Or the oath, sorry, I'm thinking the oath of office of the executor.
Okay, perfect.
Oh,
Yeah,
oh,
that's-
excuse me, thank you for the correction.
Yeah.
Section 15.
Okay, now, once those have gone, 28 days later, I think Jonathan did the right thing in thanking them. Now, he was thanking them for having appointed him as executor. We would like to thank them for acknowledging acknowledging their recognition
Of your office.
of the office of executor.
Acknowledgement and recognition, I think, acknowledgement and recognition.
How does it say it in that thing, clothing the office with the powers? Just
Yeah,
use the
plenary.
exact words, whatever it says there. that-
Or having clothed
Probate
the office
court
with plenary
jurisdiction.
power? or what?
Yeah, however
Yeah,
it describes the
Plenary
probate
authority.
court jurisdiction doing it.
Right there.
Thank them for doing it.
Well,
Right.
actually, well, you can put that in the notice, that if we
I
haven't
have-
heard from you, you can contact us to agree, write
Yeah.
back to agree, write back to rebut, or in the alternative, yeah, after 28 days of silence, you will have assented, acknowledged, agreed, admitted.
And we'll be getting
And
a
whatever.
postcard.
Yeah, okay, what I put here and I.
You don't
what I-
tell them
what
that,
I-
you just send them a letter saying, thank you for having
I
acknowledged
think-
that the
I think
party
that-
is clothed in the full plenary authority.
What about
Could
a
you put those
postcard?
last words right there?
What
so
about
we
a
refer to
postcard
that?
with your family crest on
I
it?
had,
Clothed in
Okay. and
plenary
so-
authority?
I had
So
said
is it
this, that the
notice?
occupant of the executor office to the Gordon Microphiller estate is appointed by the living will of the testator and clothed with plenary authority by the probate court jurisdiction
Give me a
by the
reference
office of the Governor General of Canada's non-rebuttal of this affidavit.
Reference
Number, I lost it here now, yeah, number 7.
And this is the draft, so it's in section 7 of the same draft. Affidavit in there, section
And that is,
7. The same draft. Affidavit of the executive.
Affidavit
Section
by
15,
affidavit.
words up,
Okay.
up top.
Yep, plus 7.
section 7 is gonna go into our thank you.
Oh.
Can also go in up here and be repeated.
Yeah.
Okay?
Repeated is dual entry?
Yeah, there can be lots of redundancy in this. It
That's
doesn't
great.
matter.
In fact, that is good to, this is what you're going
Because
to
you're
agree
repeating
to
yourself,
if you agree
right?
or if you stay silent unless you
Dual
rebut.
entry.
And then we
Here's-
thank you for the plenary authority granted or acknowledged by your office.
Here's one other point here that I put in here. That all words and phrases contained herein are as the undersigned overstands them in the undersigned's common usage, and no fraudulent conveyance of language is intended, acknowledged, or admitted.
Okay, well,
That
there's,
this affable letter directory is an official communication originating from a non-independent postal zone under the jurisdiction of the Universal Postal Union, constituting official mail in compliance with postal regulations regarding private postal mail carriers with the undersigned as postmaster hereon. Well,
Is anybody set up here as postmaster?
no.
Yeah.
I think that seems to be an official position that might be mandatory.
well,
Fourth is
don't
the
you become
executive.
postmaster of that non-independent postal zone by simply putting a postal stamp on it and signing through it? That's what I understand.
I understand that as well, but when it gets conveyed back through the postal system, are you creating a defect in your office?
You know, let's leave that for now because it's fine to do that. I was going to say we should write to the post office later. Okay?
Well, but I think that
Establish
this
that.
needs to have that address, that's the reason I hadn't said my postal location changed, because read what I was doing, because Her Majesty is the Postmaster General for Canada. So, I was doing the postmaster, or the postal location change letter to the postmaster in Gibbons, which is, all these small towns have it. And I'm doing that, and then I was gonna CC that to the Attorney General and the Lieutenant Governor and the Governor General of Canada, because that's for the Queen, and that's all going, I wanted to put that in the same package, to cover that all at the same time. And I
Well,
wanted
You
to cover
need
it
that
in here.
addressed to be
Yeah,
in the
you need that address
letters.
because you want it to come back to
Now,
them.
listen, I talked to Tom Schultz in USA, and we had quite a discussion with postal and stuff. You need this communication to communicate or we're beat.
Yeah.
He suggested to put everything inside, and he said you can put your email address. Because an email address you can take with you anywhere, access in any place.
Right
And
on.
that's what you want to do. The only reason you want this is strictly for that they have to communicate, send back to something.
Wow, that's an interesting point, and that becomes universal address through a registry. It
Right.
cancels borders, it becomes
And
international.
it's also now electronically.
Yeah.
You can serve people through this.
As of '06, no, actually '04, June 6th, all electronic filing is acceptable as electronic signature.
Right. So he suggested this to stop it, but he said the postal is, with the executor, he said, we're up to ours in public. But what we're doing here is now going private, so he said, when you go to the next level, then it's gonna be important for postal, but he said, they believe, talking with Keating and that, they believe that the email address will stop everything and cut all to the chase.
I could see that, because you are your own postmaster on that singular address, which can be globally accessed.
And it can take, wherever you are in the globe, it's there, it's just
Yeah.
like standing on the land,
You're carrying your
my
office
footprint,
Guys,
and holding office,
I
yes.
don't know.
that's great, but it's still content.
So it said here in stuff about the UPU, it said the only older union is the telecommunications union. Remember that?
Older union than the UPU? UPU, like, was long before wire.
The UP was 1991.
Really? I'll find it for you.
Oh,
There was a telegraph union.
Okay, well, I don't understand, like, the form is the letters rogatory, so the
No,
form.
no,
is-
the form of the first letter is letters rogatory.
Right.
So let's get the whole process down here. What are we doing?
Okay, well, okay, so we said the letters rogatory, letters testamentary.
And then basically
the
a
act-
notice
and the oath of
thanking them
office
to
of the
locate.
executor, and then a notice of thanking
Notice
the
to thank
recipient
them.
or.
Okay, that's the start of the process. That's not the whole process, okay? That's how we're gonna start. What has to go after this? Anybody?
To me, it's going back after the audit. I gotta
Okay.
do my job.
Okay, so then the next one is the Receiver General, is what you're saying.
and request audit.
Yeah. I'm the executor, so I have to gather and protect the estate, and I have the, one of
Would
the
it be a
things in that
request audit
executor,
or order
in that
audit?
executor
That stuff will
guide, it
work
says
better
that I
than
have to
preparation
audit.
H.
I can do an audit.
Receiver General is admitting to
Yeah, that
receivership.
was, asking the receiver general for a forensic audit,
As
will
well
work
as
better than
the
preparation
Minister of
H.
Finance?
No, just, whoop,
But that's his boss.
because all of a sudden,
Oh, yeah.
like,
Well, the
I
receiver
mean, I've
general
got
is
issues
receiver
going
general
on that,
for
holy crap, they don't wanna
of
give me an
Canada.
audit.
So they're operating through the creditors and receivers.
Well,
So that is the party who would be bound
Well, yeah,
to
that's good.
disclose
Yeah.
to a creditor
Doing
who
this,
is
because that's
not
the next request.
the debtor government.
I found there's a degree of contingency if the matter is before the court. I've been told that certain offices like ombudsman and such cannot enter a case unless it's not before the court.
That's the case, for instance, in Alberta, for certain
Ombudsman's,
instances.
all the findings that the ombudsman, they cannot be,
Okay.
they cannot be
But
brought.
that's,
Maybe Mike will
Yeah.
have some more idea into this than what I do, and this is something I was very curious about. If we send that forensic audit thing to the Receiver General, and then they're, like I said, they're gonna have to come up with all the full accounting of where the estate is being administered anywhere for the executor.
Yeah.
Approval.
Where the assets are being distributed.
And
Which
so
county?
once that's
That's
settled.
the court check.
Does that settle, like for instance, the warrants, those court cases, divorce cases, stuff like that, does that settle those, or do you have to go after those individually after the fact, after you do the Receiver General?
Well, that
That's
should
what I
come up.
don't know. Okay?
It's got to be in the
It's-
past or
it's-
account. It's an itemization invoice.
excuse me, they're not gonna send you a check here, they're gonna send you an audit.
Yeah, that's.
So now you know what has to be
That should be-
settled.
Yeah, and now you have to go after
Okay.
each office.
What you just said, right? All everything that's
Okay.
ever gone on is what you should be getting.
It's going to be an
So look at
invoice
this.
of who's entitled to payment and who has received payment.
Right,
And
You
I
go-
You're
know
going to
that
have
this
to make
one.
sure those that are seeking payment receive payment.
right.
96 of them.
But I mean, yeah, if they're using, if someone's administrating my account in Manitoba to build a bridge, and I get that, and I go, no, the executor doesn't approve that.
I just say, I hope you're gonna use my token
Well,
with my picture on it.
is not an audit disclosure,
Yeah,
and wouldn't it fall even under the jurisdiction of the statutes, under 337?
You gotta step into the realm to understand which obligation you're going to implement. The one that needs attention. You can't hear it from over here. It's gotta be in their world somehow. If not, we're sending our paper in to make sure that those accounts are adjusted. It's their terminology. It's in essence, the house's account. I'm coming into the house to try and resolve an issue.
ECT.
If not, send the paper in to do so.
I'm getting excited, I just,
You're getting goosebumps, I can see it, come on, settle down. You're getting stuff all over the ceiling here, settle down.
I've been dreaming about this for a long time, and I'm so
Table
happy that we are all here putting our minds in.
Oompa doompa.
Where two or more are gathered in my name, so there am I.
There you go. So we should have brought up an extra chair for him here too, you know. Where is that stand the whole time?
There's been an extra
So the
chair, oh,
extra
he's
chairs
been
will be
right
throwing
here.
this table over pretty soon.
He's been right here, he's in within each of us.
There you go.
Don't need an extra chair.
Are you tempting or are
We
you just
have-
happy to see us?
Tempting. High beaming.
That would make a lot.
They're buying junk across the road, you know. I was gonna go there and show them mine and see what I'd get for it.
Sip on the coffee.
Would you agree that what we've been talking about is to establish, at least put them on notice and get their agreement to our standing?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, so that's standing documentation.
That's
We're
what
actually
the-
sending paperwork to establish our standing.
Right.
Issue documentation.
Cheryl, would you happen to have that paper from the Hague articles? They called it a declaration,
Yes.
didn't they? 32 is declaration or something? Of the Hague, they called it.
Hague Convention?
Yeah.
It was a declaration, not a proclamation, it was a declaration.
Yeah.
There's a difference, I can't recall what it is.
Yeah.
Okay.
One's by protest, the other one's by decree.
By protest?
Yeah, it achieved its proclamation by protest. And then it becomes valid by decree as a proclamation. They're kind of hand in hand.
So a declaration is what?
Sinicola.
A declaration is simply unilateral, whereas a proclamation comes through an agreement either by default or by agreement.
Did you have it?
I don't have I didn't bring that.
Because
So-
they have to notice all the people that are in the Hague.
Are we making a declaration by virtue of letters rogatory?
In essence, yes.
Yeah.
Or does the declaration then come from
There
the
can be-
unrebutted letters rogatory,
It
which
comes
is
to life
now
by
a
then.
proclamation based on their agreement?
Yes.
It's called decree pro confesso, a decree pursuant to their confession of what you said.
And the silence is
The reason why I brought
It's
this
gotta be
is
validated, it's gotta,
it's their duty to notice everybody in the Hague immediately.
Oh, the Hague Convention on Trust and their recognition.
Yeah.
That's what you're talking about.
And they notice everybody who's in the Hague immediately when you make your to them.
Yeah.
special department,
Yeah.
Secretary of the Hague.
Yeah. In the Netherlands.
Oh, I'll tell you why. Because as of year 2000, the Netherlands is where we're getting the ECHR, European Court's Human Rights Issues are coming to life.
There's also a convention from 1961 on colonies and
This is 1984.
original peoples or native people, whatever they called it, indigenous
Indigenous
people. And what it basically was, whereas the United Nations was recognizing an undoing of colonial authority, to give back full authority to indigenous people and conquered nations, indigency.
Indigenous
I was colonized.
But
judgment.
The reason I brought that up is that's what.
that's not indigenous, that's indigency.
Indigency,
If you're indigent, you have no money.
which is the right to claim my position that you can't squeeze blood from a rock, now can you?
Well, if you're claiming indigent status, it's not simply that you're saying that you have no money, you're saying you have no estate.
What I'm saying is I
Basically,
have the right to be
democracy.
poor without you imposing that upon me.
Yeah, so do I have to
Insurance,
claim
get
indigent
one there.
status, or
No.
where's the love? As you put
See,
it.
that's the whole point here, is the issue here is because under Sesta KV trust law, they're administering everything. They're issuing the bonds, they're collecting back, whether you want to call it waste or overage or whatever. You're not getting the value handed to you as the executor or the testator or the authority for the estate. They're collecting everything because they're administrating the estate. You're not seeing it. When you come forward and do this, there's an issue here of bonds that have been issued. You need, like you said, an audit from the Receiver
Right.
General, okay?
One other point I'd like to suggest to everybody that Tim suggested before we left Edmonton that I thought was a great idea. Everybody here agrees that the language in this thing is of paramount importance. That it should say what it means and mean what it says. To that end, I said, and I still believe, that in reality this should be done in the truth language procedure. David Miller, I took
13
David Miller's course and he was dead on the
If
money.
you want to do that, you can
However-
send the letter in
however-
that issue, not just the cover letter.
However, since they don't understand, you can't, to use the truth language procedure, they don't get it. What Tim suggested, and which I think is a great idea, to do a cover page explaining all this in the truth and then saying, but since you don't understand, here the rest is it written in verb.
Or we can do it in truth language and then take pages with a border and put it into